According to what I can see all over the news, wherever you look, the Palestinians hate the Israelis. You could say they've got good reason to. The Israelis hate the Palestinians, especially those belonging to Hamas. You could say they got good reason to. Look a bit further. Black people hate white people. Not all of them, not saying that, but there are plenty who do. White people hate black people. Not all of them, I'm not saying that, but there are plenty who do. Scottish people hate English people. Not all of them, but there's plenty who do. Welsh people hate English people. Irish people hate English people. In fact, everybody seems to hate English people, especially the Cornish for some reason. Lots of people all over the world seem to hate America and Americans. And we've all got our reasons and justifications for this. Everybody seems to hate Christians. Whoa, be a Christian, you're going to be on the end of it before too much longer. Why? Why, oh why do we have all this hate? That's a question I want to take a look at today, because I think the answer is simple and the solution is simple. Welcome to Spindrifter, a channel here on YouTube where we do simple faith for ordinary folk. If you're looking for a long-winded intellectual squabble, you're in the wrong place. Simple faith for ordinary folk. And speaking of ordinary folk, I watched a video on YouTube quite recently that had been put on there by a supporter of West Bromwich Albion Football Club, which is in the West Midlands, the central part of England. West Bromwich Albion and Wolverhampton Wanderers were playing one another in an FA Cup game, and they are great rivals, local rivals. Black Country Derby is what the game is called. And this West Bromwich Albion supporter has made a video about the game, and right from the very beginning, the first thing he says is, he says something along these lines. He said, just want to clear something up before I go any further. He said, I hate Wolves. I hate everything about Wolves. I hate them, all of them, blah, 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 blah. And he goes on to tell us how much he hates Wolves. And you could find supporters of Wolverhampton Wanderers, Wolves, who would say the same thing about West Bromwich Albion supporters. Why? I mean, a little bit of local rivalry, what harm does that do? It's a bit of fun maybe, but when it turns into hate, which is defined as an intense aversion or an intense hostility towards someone or something else. And there was trouble in the crowd at that game. Some Wolves supporters got in the West Bromwich Albion end, and when Wolves scored for the second time, it all went off and everybody got angry, and West Brom supporters went piling across there to try and get at them. There were children in that section of the ground. What if one of those children had got crushed and killed? Where is your hatred then? What is the value of it? I thought I'd have a look at hate. And it's not hard to find out about, funnily enough. And apparently, according to the psychologists amongst us, these are like much cleverer people than me, hate is a secondary emotion. I never knew that. I didn't know hate was a secondary emotion. And what that means is it's something that we have learned. It's a response from experience and from social conditioning. It's what people have taught us to do and what our experience has taught us to do. It's not something we are born with. We're not born with hate, apparently. So I'm told. Hate is a strong negative, a distasteful force is what it is. It's not a nice thing. And hate can lead to all kinds of behaviour, as we have seen many, many, many times. Just go and have a look and see what's happening in the Middle East. It's all based on hate. People flying aeroplanes into buildings because of hate. Nazism and all that was designed around hate. And considering how many people hate the English on account of what they did in the past, which is fair enough, I guess, up to some extent. But it seems to me that the Germans got away with it because Nazism probably caused more death and misery than just about anything else in the modern era. Anything else that was based upon hatred, which Nazism was based upon, wasn't it? So that's a very simple assessment of what hate is. Who can I hate? Who can I hate? Well, I can hate everybody, can't I? And lots of people are so hateful that they pretty much do. They don't like people of a different race, ethnicity, a different sexual perspective, etc., etc. We've got the PC brigade these days who hate anybody who even looks like they might disagree with them. What happened to freedom of speech and freedom of thought? I don't know. I can hate everybody, can't I? I can hate anybody. I can hate everybody, including the people who live in my street. And if I want to, I can hate myself as well. Why? Why all this hatred? Well, apparently there's lots of reasons, lots of excuses, if you want to call them that, that you can find out about. I mean, I've looked a lot of this stuff up, and it's not easy, not hard to do. Apparently, mutual hatred helps us to bond together, a kind of a us versus them mentality. So if we hate that lot over there, we're all mates together, aren't we? We're part of a tribe and a group. It satisfies a need for connection. We're part of something. Okay. It fulfills a desire for us to fit in, apparently. It's an easy way to get friends, isn't it? And it doesn't cost you much. I mean, hate is cheap, isn't it? Hate is cheap. Reasons why we have a propensity and a tendency towards hate. There's lots of other psychological and emotional factors that can come into play as well. We might want a scapegoat in order to give us somebody to bully, in order to enable us to deal with our own insecurities, etc., etc., etc. But these don't sound to me like reasons to hate. They sound more like excuses for it. Now, in keeping with the objective, if you like, of this particular channel, it's about simple faith for ordinary folk. I think there's a very simple reason to explain why we hate. One reason in my book, and my book, generally speaking, tends to be the Bible, and that reason is very simple. Because we choose to. We hate because we choose to. Never mind the excuses, the bottom line is we choose to do so. And if we read the Bible, I would strongly recommend, if you do read it, don't begin at the start of the beginning. But if you do start at the beginning, you very quickly find a story of Cain and Abel, two brothers, one of whom was jealous of the other and came to hate his brother. So right at the very beginning of the story that is the Bible, we see an example of somebody choosing to hate another person when he didn't have to. He didn't have to. He could have chosen not to hate his brother. He could have chosen to make an effort to love his brother instead of allowing himself to give in to hatred. And of course, because he allowed himself to give in to hatred, he murdered his brother. And it's been happening ever since, isn't it? And it's happening right now, right this minute, as I am speaking to this camera. And if anybody is listening to me, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years hence, it's still happening today. Hatred brings about all sorts of impacts, and we could make a list of them, and we'd be here from now until doomsday. We'd be going on making a list of the outcomes of hatred forever and ever and ever. But setting that aside for a moment, we ask the question, how do we overcome it? And again, I turn my attention to the views of the psychologists, the clever people, the ones who've got intelligence and academic ability and so on. And they've got lots of techniques, if you want to call them that, to enable people to work to overcome hatred. They'll try and work with somebody to challenge the bias that's ingrained in their brain. They'll have policies and procedures for promoting inclusion, and they will attempt to foster empathy. So I would say to my West Bromwich Albion supporting YouTube colleague, instead of hating Wolverhampton Wanderers, why don't you try supporting them for a little bit and then see if you might grow to like them a little bit. That would be about fostering empathy, wouldn't it? They try to encourage dialogue between different hateful groups who hate one another. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Alternatively, and this might come across as a little bit radical, we could do none of that, because obviously all of that stuff, which is all happening, not working, is it? It's not making one spot's worth of difference to the amount of hatred in the world. But I believe that there is one solution that will work. We could just listen to Jesus. Now you might be thinking, oh, here we go, Jesus. Yeah, listen to what Jesus said in Matthew, the book of Matthew, chapter 5. Just listen to Jesus. Because the best part of 2,000 years ago, this individual who was wandering around in the Middle East, what is today the Middle East, he had this to say. He said, "You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbour and hate your enemy." What he was doing there is reflecting the view that was prevalent in their day. Love your neighbour, hate your enemy. The Jews hated the Samaritans, the people who lived a little bit further up north than them. The Samaritans hated the Jews, so much so that they wouldn't even speak to one another. And if they saw one of the other group coming towards them, they'd get on the other side of the road or whatever they were walking on, so to avoid coming into any kind of contact with the other person. How ridiculous is that? The Jews hated the Romans, and they thought it was all right. And Jesus is saying to them, no, you've heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbour and hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. What? Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Love your enemies. That implies that there's a choice to be made. I mean, I can't magically love my enemy or the person that I've been told to hate or have come to dislike through various experience. Nobody loves a paedophile, do they? Well, some people might. I don't know. But most people would say, you know, no, I hate paedophiles, I hate paedophilia. I can't supernaturally love paedophiles, but I can choose to want to do so. And by choosing to want to love someone, I choose to stop hating them, don't I? And that's a start. It's a step in the right direction. Imagine the difference it might make in the Gaza Strip right now if the entire nation of Israel was to turn around and to say no. No, let us choose to love the Palestinian. You're probably hearing that and thinking this guy's off his rocker. Fair enough. Well, maybe Jesus was as well when he said to them, love your neighbour and love your enemy. Churches will say, and people in churches, and I've heard this many times and I've said it myself, hate the sin, love the sinner. Hate the sin, love the sinner. Hate what they do, but don't hate the person who does it. No, that can't work. Because we are all, to some extent, naturally judgmental people. So if I'm going to hate the action and the behaviour of another person, it's not very long before I'm actually going to start to hate people who do that particular thing. I can't agree with that. It becomes there becomes a group or a type of person which you can justifiably hate. Jesus didn't ever say that we should hate anybody. And I can stand against particular types of behaviour without hating it. Doesn't mean I have to accept various types of behaviour. I'm not going to do that. But I don't have to hate them either. So, no question for you. You, out there, there's an individual listening to this. If you've stuck with me so far, thank you. I'm really pleased, actually. Question. Who or what do you hate? Who or what do you actually hate? It's a big question, isn't it? And it's not hard to just sit down with a little piece of paper and a pen and scribble down just 2 or 3 names or groups or types of people that you either do hate or have hated in the past. I was taught as a child, right, and I was a kid, I was little, I had no say in it. I was taught to hate black people. I was taught to hate them. And because I was taught to hate them, I did. Until I got a bit older and started to develop a mind of my own a little bit, and I asked the question, well, do I want to? Do I want to hate? And whatever person or group of people you hate, and that might be your ex-wife or your ex-husband, I don't know. There's a lot of that, isn't it? Do you want to hate them? Do you want to hate them? Do you really want to hold on to that hate? If you do, you're in a pit. You got a problem. You're stuck. And you're going nowhere like that. If you don't want to hate, well, you can choose to follow another path. It's a narrow path. Not many people on it. You need to look at the words and the actions of Jesus. Because his teaching, if he was, is, who the Bible says he is, then his teaching Not teaching, it's a command. And he commands us to love our enemies. Which sounds bonkers, doesn't it? But what if we all did that? What if we all did that? I'm going to leave it there. I hope that's been slightly thought-provoking, useful, interesting, whatever. Give it some thought. Do you really want to hate? Oh, there's just one other thing that I forgot. I've been speaking about human hatred today. Well, let me tell you, there's another kind. There's another kind of hatred that makes our human hatred look almost childish in comparison. And in the next video, I'm going to tell you about that. Till then, be blessed. Have a great time.